How do you carve out your own path in life? That's what I'm going to speak in this video about. And this is something that I wish someone would have taught me when I was younger, which is why I'm making this. During my college years, I spent a lot of time thinking like everyone else, what should I do? What should I focus on? What major should I take? What career path should I go down on? And what career path is going to allow me to live a happy, financially successful, fulfilling life? I wanted someone to hand me a blueprint and told me, here are the steps that you need to take. Here's what you need to do. Here's the path that you need to follow if you want to be successful and you want to be happy and do all these things. There's rarely, if ever, a blueprint that somebody else can hand you from a path that they carved out that is going to fit you exactly and lead you to where you want to be. The answer is that you need to carve your own path. Now, that's where I am going to start this video. The question is, why is carving out your path so hard? And I am going to share my screen here. So I created some illustrations here to walk you through this. I'm going to start with an analogy. So let's think about our ancestors, early humans right here. They're hanging out, living in their circle right here. So this is their safe space. They're hanging out by the fire. They're living in the jungle, I guess. If they wanted to carve out their own path, they needed to now go into the unknown territory and try to carve out their path there. They might encounter, wolves, snakes, lions, who knows? The point being here is that there were real dangerous things out there that can kill them, harm them. And so carving your path and say, going from this safe space to settling in somewhere else, that would require leaving your comfort zone. And there was real danger to that, right? And so the people who wanted to carve their own path, they got this idea. They were like, I'm going to leave my comfort zone and figure it out in the wilderness. That was dangerous. People did it. And that's how, they settled into new lands and so on. But that was real dangerous. In today's world, we don't have those same dangers, but it still feels quote unquote dangerous to carve your own path. It feels scary to do something. At least it did for me. I'm not going to speak for everybody, but at least for me, it felt scary because when I was in college and I was thinking about what should I do? What do I want to do? What is going to allow me to be successful? I actually wanted to become a dance instructor, a dancer and a dance instructor. But it felt scary to me. It felt like I was now, if I did that, it was going to be a ton of uncertainty. I didn't know how to get students. I didn't know how to run a business. I didn't know anything about selling classes. I felt afraid of selling my classes. So there was a lot of uncertainty. I didn't even know if it was going to be a career path that it was going to be lucrative. I thought if I became a dance instructor, I was going to starve forever. So it felt like this unknown territory. I read this book that, those books that you have in college that tells you it's like some job. Anyway, they talk about each specific position and they tell you a salary range that you might expect to earn if you were to follow that career path. And so when I saw a dance instructor, it was like essentially you were going to be broke forever for the rest of your life. And that felt kind of like this, like unknown territory. But as I've read more and more biographies of successful people, I've seen how they've carved out their paths in life. And that's what I want to share with you here in this video. And I want to tell you here some stories about Steve Jobs, my dance instructor, Elon Musk, Walt Disney, Mr. Beast. My dance instructor is nowhere near on the level of these other people, but that was my closest example back then. But he's actually one of the inspirations for me to become a dance instructor. But these are other people who've obviously carved their own path. And so anyway, I have a few stories. But before we dive into them, I want to share with you how I found this pattern of so I've been thinking about this pattern of carving your own path. And I want to tell you how I got there, how I came to this conclusion that this is how you carve your own path. So let me start there. So, if you haven't seen any of my other YouTube videos, I am interested in storytelling. I have a video that's called How to Tell Stories. One of the frameworks when it comes to storytelling that I am really intrigued by is this one called The Hero's Journey. And yes, I created all these illustrations for this video. This is the 12 steps to the hero's journey. Okay, so I'll come back to this idea of the hero's journey here in a second. But let me speak about this other thing too, this other book that I read. It's called The Creative Act. I have it right here on my bookshelf. And in that book, so the book is obviously about creativity. And in that book, the author, Rick Rubin, talks about this idea that ideas don't come from us, right? So you as a person don't come up with your own ideas. Instead, the ideas that you come up with, the creative energy that fuels your ideas, that comes from God or the universe, whatever you want to name it. So you can think about this in the book. The author talks about, Rick Rubin talks about how the same creative energy that fuels you, that gives you the ideas, is the same creative energy that flows through plants, through everything. And so again, this idea that ideas aren't yours. I read it in here. Something that resonated with me is something that I've also thought about myself. And I'll explain here why in a second. So here's the premise, so there's God, there's the universe, and God sends kind of like an email broadcast out with ideas to the world. And then humans, we have these, metaphorical antennas where we receive information and then we're tuned in and we receive this idea. So instead of the ideas being ours, it's more like we're receiving them from God, from the universe. Okay. And that is this idea. And for me, this, as a side note, this is something that also made me think of, I read this book called Conversations with God, in which the author, which I forget his name, talked about how God is wanting to express itself, himself, herself. And so to me, that's something that made me think of this, like God sends out these ideas, the universe sends out these ideas, and you receive them, and those ideas aren't yours. It's kind of like God wanting to express itself, right? And so you as a person, you receive them, and that's where you come up with the ideas that you come up with. And so to me, I've thought about this because you've read, I'm sure you've come up with examples of, you've seen examples of people in similar periods of time coming up with similar ideas. Like, okay, so I am reading here, I don't think you could see my screen. I'm reading here about, it's called multiple discovery, where people discover or come to the conclusion in the same field for similar things. So for example, the invention of calculus by Isaac Newton and Gottfried, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Leibniz, the discovery of oxygen by Joseph Priestley and Carl Wilhelm Scheele, and the theory of evolution by Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace. So they arrived at similar conclusions around the same time period. So to me, it was, obviously it could have been a total coincidence, and that's totally fine. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to assume, or we're going to pretend like that was God sending out ideas to the universe, from the universe, and then people received them, and then they acted on them, and they arrived at same conclusions. And so, this is where, stick with me, but it gets woo-woo for sure. So, all right. So to me, that idea of, ideas don't come from you, that you receive them from God, from the universe. And then this other idea that was shared in the creative act right here is that energy, again, this is woo-woo, so stick with me. Energy is not inside of you, but rather outside of you. So think about it in this way. If you've ever had a project that you were working on, even though you slept, that you didn't love, even though you slept well, you had a full night rest, you go to work on the project and immediately you're drained of energy. Or the opposite, where you didn't get much sleep, you were tired, whatever it is, right? So you're tired, and then you get to do this thing that you really enjoy, or you find this thing that you really enjoy, and all of a sudden you're energized. And that idea that things can energize you, or that energy is not within you, but outside of you. And so using that as a way to gauge what ideas and what things you should focus on was the point of that in the book. It's like, you should focus on the ideas that energize you. And so to me, connecting this idea with the hero's journey, so you get some ideas, right? So you get an idea and then that idea energizes you. That to me is the call to adventure from the hero's journey. So let me go back to the hero's journey a second. In the hero's journey, it goes like this. So the hero lives in an ordinary world, and they get an idea, they get something that excites them. To me, that is the call to adventure, but then they refuse it. They say like, no, I don't want to do that. It seems scary. It seems whatever, right? And so it's kind of like this idea of, let's go back to this. It's like, you have this idea that you want to leave your safe space and go into the wilderness. That seems scary. So you may not want to do that. And so that right there is, to me, is the call to adventure. It's like you get these ideas that you feel energized by. That is one of the secrets to carving your own path in life. And I'll show you here with some examples. So you have something, you get an idea, and that is something that, like, for a path to go down on, and that seems exciting. Now, for me, this is, again, how I want to live my life. Is I always want to pursue my excitement, things that just truly grasp me, not something that seems superficial, but something that I am truly fascinated by, something that I am truly inspired by, something that seems like a true calling, not just something that you feel like, okay, I'm excited by this, but it's kind of like just superficial. No, you're truly enthralled by this thing. Okay, so like for me, back when I was in college, it was dancing. I love dancing. That's what I wanted to do all the time. I was every day waking up, trying to figure out how to get better, how to do these new moves, spending a ton of time watching YouTube videos, trying to see how other people were dancing, see if I can pick up any tips. I would spend the entire day doing that. And I did that for years. And so it wasn't like something that just grasped my attention for a little bit. It's something that kept me hooked for many, many years. Anyway, so to me, this has been something, just recognizing, okay, so ideas are given by me. I get excited by them, and then I should pursue them. That is how I think. Now, the problem is, like, this is a path, again, this goes back to the fear. Like, I want to live my life in that way, and where I do things that I am excited by. But doing that, I mean, so on one end, you're excited. Like for me, when it came to dancing back then, it was like, okay, I see this path. I don't know where it leads. I am excited by this dancing path, but I don't know if that's going to lead me down a cliff, if I am going to end up being homeless because I can't pay my bills, because I don't have any students, because I don't know how to sell my classes, because I don't even know if this is a career that anyone ever makes any money and is able to sustain themselves as a dance instructor. Like, all those uncertain things is what causes the fear, and what stops me, and what stops a lot of people from pursuing whatever it is that they're excited by. For me, I followed that same hero's journey formula when I got the idea of becoming a dance instructor. I remember a friend brought it up. They were like, hey, why don't you pursue this path of being a dance instructor? And I knew deep inside, like, I felt excitement by it, but I also felt like this, like, I don't know about that. Like, that seems scary. I don't want to do that. And I denied it. I'm like, no, I don't want to be a dance instructor. When truly inside, I knew I wanted to, but I just, like, even the thought, I couldn't accept me wanting to do that for myself. And so, yeah, I mean, that is something where once you have the idea that you recognize a path that you're excited by, following that path, it could be scary. You don't know what lies ahead. You don't know if the road that you're following ends up leading anywhere meaningful. You don't know if it's just going to be a waste of time. This is where in mythology the dragon exists. You don't know if, like, you follow this path, there's going to be a dragon. So obviously in real life there aren't any dragons, but you might be afraid of wasting time, looking silly. At least for me, I was like, okay, if I become a dance instructor, maybe I enjoy it, but I'm not sure if I'm going to make money. I'm afraid of looking silly. Like, what is my family going to think? Like, all of my family thought I was going to be an engineer, and that's not what I wanted to do. You may face, depending on what you want to do, you may face physical danger, negative consequences. So for me, something that I have found that helps when it comes to having the courage to pursue your call to adventure is having faith that these ideas that you're getting are not coming from you, but are coming from God, from the universe. That is why I brought that up earlier on, is because if you think about it in that way, it might be just you fooling yourself You know, if you don't believe in God or the universe or anything, you may choose to still believe in this because, you know, it just gives you the courage, the conviction to do something that you enjoy. Now, for me, I truly believe it is something that these ideas are mine. I think it is a practical belief to have. So yeah, so I choose to believe in this, where I don't think, because these ideas aren't mine, I don't think God is ever going to lead me down a path where it's going to lead me off a cliff, right? So I think that whatever I get put in front of, I will be able to overcome. And it's just there to teach me something. But yeah, so that requires faith, right? You don't know. And that's, you know, I heard Jordan Peterson talk about this in one of his videos. He was actually talking about this very thing of the call to adventure and how God manifests itself in the Bible. And one of the ways it manifests itself is as the call to adventure in the story of Abraham and the story of Moses. Anyway, Jordan Peterson talks about in that video how the role of parents is to encourage kids to pursue their excitement, to pursue their curiosity, that called to adventure. I just found that interesting. So anyway, I just talking about faith, you know, that so if you want to pursue things, sometimes all you could do is resort to having faith that things will turn out okay. And this is where I also want to share with you some examples of people that have carved their own path, so that maybe also you could just have faith, but also seeing that other people, it's worked out for them. So like, for example, Steve Jobs took a calligraphy class when he was back in university. And, you know, he was spending his parents' money where they didn't have that much money to take a class that wasn't a requirement. It must have felt silly. I don't know if for him, but like thinking about it feels silly. Like, okay, you're here, you're in college. Why are you taking a class like calligraphy that it feels useless, right? And so, but he was excited by it. And that's where that decision eventually ends up paying off later on when they created the Apple computer and so on. And so it ends up paying off for him. And that ends up being something that defines his path, so he was carving his path right there, but he didn't even know it. And there's a speech about him saying this, but like, this is part of how you carve your path. You follow your excitement. Okay, here's another example. So when Steve Jobs bought Pixar, that was another thing. Like, he didn't know it was going to be a massive success later on. When he bought it, he just, like, the Pixar company was really like not that many people. They weren't working on big projects. They were losing a ton of money. It was sold to him because like this company was losing money. And so the company was supposed to be selling computers, but the computers weren't selling. And then eventually he kept funding this company because he liked the way they were making these short little movies, these short little animated movies, and he really enjoyed them. But so he was funding them, losing a ton of money. And so that decision, he did it because he really enjoyed it. And again, he was following his excitement, even though he didn't know it was going to be a massive success, right? Like that's the point here. You follow the excitement because, so that's what I say to myself. Like, you follow the excitement because you feel like these ideas are given to you, and that's why you act on them, even though you don't know that they're going to lead you to a place where you're successful. So you have to, when you act on them, you almost have to act in faith. Right. So anyway, here's another one. So the way Elon Musk chose the design for the Cybertruck. So I read the Elon Musk book, and that stood out to me, the way he made the decision to go with the Cybertruck design. A lot of people hate it. A lot of people love it. I love the Cybertruck. That's, I have that little Cybertruck toy there. The design. So when Tesla got together and they were trying to break into the pickup truck segment of the market, they were thinking about what kind of pickup truck they should make, and they kept making trucks that looked exactly like every other truck. And then one day at a meeting, Elon had his son there, and his son was like, "Dad, why does every truck look the same? Why doesn't the future look like the future?" And Elon was like, "Yeah, you're right. Like, the future should look like the future." And he said that to the people working with him. Anyway, sometime thereafter, the lead designer came up with a design that was futuristic, and Elon decided to go right there and then and pursue that idea and commit a ton of resources from his company, even though like he didn't know if it was going to be successful. And that's not like a trivial decision. This is billions of dollars going into manufacturing something that he didn't know if it was going to be successful. And so that kind of conviction of pursuing an idea that you're excited by, that takes muscle and repetition, and it takes almost like faith, knowing that things will work out. But I saw that, and I saw that as an opportunity. Like I saw that as a manifestation of this idea of just going and doing the things that you're excited by. Obviously, I'm not saying throw caution out the door and like do things that are reckless, although that has also worked out. It just depends on you. You have to be the one to make the decision. I'm just pointing these things out there. Like, we don't even know if the Cybertruck is going to be the thing that ends up doing really well. Like, I think it's doing well, but I don't really know for sure. But I just saw that as an example in the book. In the book, Elon Musk book, there's a ton of those examples of him making decisions, like just purely on things that he was excited by. Even just like, for example, the one where there's another one where Elon buys Twitter. Elon loves to tweet. And you might think to yourself, like, okay, he shouldn't be tweeting all that much and so on. You know, putting his politics aside, he bought this company, and now Meta, Facebook. So I heard Mark Zuckerberg talk about how he's copying some of the things that Elon is doing with X, with Twitter, over in his company. And I thought, wow, he was able to influence other platforms in my opinion, in a positive way. And he made a decision. And when you read about how he made the decision to buy Twitter, it wasn't all that calculated. You could argue that it wasn't a good decision back then, but in any case, it was something that he was excited by. There's a story about Tim Ferriss. When he wrote the 4-Hour Workweek, he was getting a ton of speaking engagements. He was getting a lot of consulting gigs and so on. And he could have made a ton of money just doing the things that he was getting invited to. Eventually, at some point, he's like, I don't want to become this 4-hour person, 4-hour this, 4-hour that. So I am going to stop everything, all my speaking engagement. He canceled everything. And that must have taken courage. That must have taken some sort of faith that things will work out for him in his favor. Just also starting a podcast. Back then, when Tim started a podcast, he was doing it because the idea excited him, and he did this, even though like being a podcaster wasn't something that was a proven path. Right? Like, it wasn't a carved out path. He actually helped carve out the path. Same thing with Joe Rogan creating his podcast. When he started, there was nobody creating podcasts. It wasn't a path that was clear. It wasn't a path that he knew was going to lead him to financial success. And now, years ago, he was offered a $100 million deal from Spotify to have his podcast over at Spotify. He wouldn't have predicted that. He was just doing what he was excited by. For me, I became a dance instructor without knowing how I was going to get students. It's like the same thing, it's just at a much smaller scale. Same thing when we opened up our studio. We opened up many miles away from the studio where we had left, and we lost a ton of students. And so these decisions, but we did it because we were excited by that idea. We wanted to share our passion with dancing with others. That's a lot of the reasons that motivated us to open up a studio. And in many ways, it was taking a risk. And so to carve your own path in life, this is the pattern that I keep seeing, is that you have to follow the things that you are excited by, even though it may feel dangerous. It may feel scary. It may feel like you may be embarrassed by what you're doing. I mean, at least for me, I felt embarrassed about wanting to be a dance instructor, a dancer, because that's not what my family expected of me. Another reason why other people or myself, like why I chose to refuse being a dance instructor for a while, is because I felt guilty about pursuing my excitement. I saw my mom sacrifice herself. I saw how much she worked, and I didn't want to she worked for us to be here in the US. She worked so that we can have a good opportunity at educating ourselves. And then I was just going to become a dance instructor. That felt like I was wasting her sacrifice. And so, yeah, that is another reason. So for me, that made me afraid of doing something that I enjoyed. I also felt guilty because I felt like I love dancing. I love doing this so much. I could do this for free. How could I earn money doing something that I enjoy? When I saw my family and I saw my mom just sacrificing herself, doing just working a job that she didn't like at all, but just to support us. And so, so I felt guilty about wanting to become a dance instructor, wanting to dance. But what I have to say to this is that you never know the larger role that you're playing in the ecosystem. So for me, it ended up working out. I ended up becoming a dance instructor. Actually, during my classes, when I later on in my career, quote unquote, as a dance instructor, I taught so many people where they told me how much dancing had helped them in their lives. It helped them, be active. One of our students had lost her husband, and she had told me how dancing kept her in good spirits from doing anything dark. So you never know the role that you're playing, and also the lessons that I learned from being a dance instructor. Eventually, like that has carried. I took those lessons and those have stayed with me when it comes to teaching people and breaking concepts down. That is something where that's why I enjoy these videos so much, is because I get to practice and use those skills of teaching, breaking things down. That has helped me also in our business. That has helped me when training our employees. And dancing itself, now we created a company where we're helping other dance studios, and we've helped transform the lives of many dance studio owners, where we've had people who were able to quit their full-time job so they could focus full-time on their studios. We've had people take their first family vacation in 8 years because the results that we've been able to get them. So we've impacted people in meaningful ways. And I wouldn't have predicted that was going to be the outcome of me pursuing dance. So again, you never know the larger role that you're playing in the ecosystem. For one example that I thought of this, I saw this, I don't know if it was just a video or a documentary talking about the fig wasp, how this wasp, essentially the entire purpose of its life is just that it goes from fig. So it goes into a fig, it lays some eggs, and then it dies. And then like new wasps come out and they do the same, and they eat the fig. So these wasps really enjoy figs, and they don't even know why they enjoy them. And so they go in and they do this thing where they enjoy figs, they go and eat the figs, but then they lay the eggs and they help pollinate these trees and they help spread these figs. And so if it weren't because of these wasps, there wouldn't be those figs. And so again, you never know the kind of role that you're playing in the larger ecosystem. You don't know why you're excited about the things that you're excited about. And so just like the wasp here doesn't know why it's excited about these figs, or why I was excited about dancing and how that led me into now leading a company and leading people and changing our clients' lives, also changing our lives, changing our team's lives, being able to provide job for other people. And it's just, you never know the kind of role that you're playing. And I say that, so here's an example of that. So you have Mr. Beast, right, from YouTube, the YouTuber, pursuing a silly hobby of making videos that nobody watched for 9 years, from 11 to 18, 8 years, nobody watched his videos, but he stuck to it because he was really excited about, and now he ends up being something positive for the world, where he does philanthropy. He makes these videos that entertain millions of people. He is able to, in his videos, he's giving away money to people. I just saw Mr. Beast games, and he was able to give prize money to somebody who his son has a rare disease. And so again, you don't know where your hobby, where your silly idea, where your this thing that you're excited by, you don't know where that's going to lead you. And one last example here is Walt Disney. Walt Disney's passion, the thing that he was excited by, his call to adventure, was drawing. And at that time, it was definitely something silly. It wasn't something that was immediately obvious that he was going to be successful with. Nobody was as successful. Like later on, the fact that he created an empire, that wasn't obvious that he was going to do that, but he felt excited by this thing and he just pursued it. For me, I'm making these videos. See, I don't even know why I'm making this video. I just felt excited about this topic and I wanted to share it with others, and hopefully somebody gets something out of it. I don't know where this is going, where I am going to take this YouTube videos, why I'm even making them. I just know that I enjoy teaching, I enjoy sharing, and that is the kind of life that I want to live, is that I want to pursue things that I am excited by and carve my own path. Okay, so that is how you carve your own path. So you have to do things that you're excited by. You have to have faith that things will work out and that God isn't going to give you an idea that is going to lead you down a cliff. I wanted to share this with everybody so that you, the viewer, maybe this helps inspire you. Maybe this helps you pay more attention to what you're excited by, give you some examples, even though they might feel like, those are people that are 1 in a billion. It's never going to happen for me in that way. Well, this doesn't have to be something major where you change the world. It could just be like me when I was pursuing my path in dance. I was doing something that felt silly for me, like just doing this dancing hobby. And so, yeah, that's what I think is the key, the formula to carving your own path in life. You pursue your call to adventure and just follow it. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.